Admiral Zexthul stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Devastator of Worlds, watching the stars through the massive viewport. His 6 eyes glowed with satisfaction as he studied the reports from his intelligence officers. The human homeworld called Earth lay 3 months away, and soon it would be another jewel in the Kethvar hegemony's crown. The alien commander was tall, even by Kethvar standards, with dark purple skin covered in natural armor plates. His species had conquered 47 worlds in the past 2 centuries. Each victory had been swift and brutal. The Kethvar way was simple: demand surrender, and if refused, destroy everything until the survivors begged for mercy. "Admiral," his communications officer reported, "we have received another transmission from the human world." Zexthul clicked his mandibles in annoyance. For over 100 years, the humans had been sending messages across space. They spoke of peace, of friendship, of trade agreements, and cultural exchange. Such weakness disgusted him. The galaxy belonged to the strong, not to creatures who wasted time with words. "Play it," he commanded. The message began with the same soft tones all human communications carried. A female voice spoke in their primitive language, which the translation computers converted to Kethvar speech. "This is Dr. Elena Vasquez speaking for the United Nations of Earth. We have received your fleet, movements through our deep space monitoring stations. We know you are coming. This will be our final message to you. Stop your advance and return to your space. We do not wish war, but we will defend ourselves. This is your only warning. Stop or be destroyed." The bridge fell silent. Then Zexthul began to laugh, a harsh sound like grinding metal. His officers joined in, their laughter echoing through the command center. "Destroyed?" Zexthul wiped his eyes. "By what?" "Their electromagnetic signals barely reach beyond their own moon. Their technology is centuries behind ours. What weapons could they possibly have?" His science officer, Commander Yethka, pulled up holographic displays showing human civilization. "Admiral, our scouts have been watching them for 50 years. They fight among themselves with chemical explosives and metal projectiles. Their ships cannot even leave their solar system. They are insects threatening a storm." The laughter resumed. Zexthul studied the tactical displays. 50,000 warships followed behind his flagship. Each ship carried enough firepower to level a planet's surface. The humans had maybe a few thousand primitive vessels if intelligence reports were correct. "How long since we last heard from their world?" Zexthul asked. "The transmission we just received was recorded 4 days ago," the communications officer reported. "But Admiral, something strange has happened. We have detected no other signals from Earth in the past week. No communications between their settlements, no entertainment broadcasts, nothing." Zexthul waved a clawed hand dismissively. "They are probably hiding in caves, terrified of our approach. It matters little. Send word to the fleet. We maintain course and speed. In 3 months we will arrive at their system and demonstrate the price of defying the hegemony." The bridge crew returned to their duties, but the communications officer remained troubled. He had spent years monitoring human transmissions. The sudden silence was unlike anything in their records. Earth had always been a noisy world, filled with constant chatter between its cities and space stations. Now there was nothing. Days passed as the massive fleet moved through hyperspace. Reports came in from advanced scouts, but they brought confusing news. Long-range sensors showed no activity around Earth. The orbital stations that had been there for decades had simply vanished. Satellite networks that had circled the planet were gone. "Perhaps they evacuated," suggested Commander Yethka during a tactical meeting. "Fled to their colonies on other worlds." "Cowards," Zexthul spat. "It will make conquest easier. Empty worlds require no negotiations." But the science officer looked worried. "Admiral, the energy readings don't make sense. A planetary evacuation would leave massive heat signatures from ships and industrial activities." "We detect nothing. It's as if the entire civilization simply stopped existing." Zexthul studied the long-range sensor data. Earth appeared as a blue-green dot in the distance, beautiful and peaceful. No cities glowed on the night side. No space traffic moved between the inner planets. The silence was complete. "Send faster scouts ahead," he ordered. "I want detailed reports on the system before we arrive." 3 scout ships jumped to high speed, racing ahead of the main fleet. They were the fastest vessels in the hegemony navy, equipped with the best sensors and communication equipment. Each carried a crew of elite warriors and scientists. A week passed, then 2 weeks. The scouts should have reached the Earth system and reported back by now. But no messages came. Communication problems? Zexthul asked his officers. No, sir. The communication networks are functioning perfectly. We can reach fleets on the other side of the galaxy. But the scouts... The communications officer paused. It's like they never existed. A chill ran through the bridge crew, though none would admit to fear. The Kethvar were warriors. They had faced dangerous enemies before. Technological civilizations that fought with energy weapons and force fields. Ancient species with knowledge spanning millennia. Pirates with stolen military equipment. But those enemies had always been visible. They sent threats, demanded tributes, or fought in open battle. This silence was different. Unnatural. Send more scouts, Zexthul commanded. A full squadron this time. 15 ships with orders to maintain constant communication. The second scouting force departed, their captains eager to solve the mystery of the missing ships. They were experienced warriors who had led assaults on fortified worlds. Whatever had happened to the first scouts would not happen to them, but as days passed, the pattern repeated. The ships reached the edge of the Earth system and simply vanished. No distress calls. No battle reports. No explosions detected by long-range sensors. They arrived at their destination and ceased to exist. Admiral Zexthul found himself staring at star charts late into the night cycle. The human system looked ordinary on paper. 1 yellow star, 8 planets, various moons and asteroids. Nothing that should pose a threat to a Kethvar warship, much less 15 of them. Admiral? His aide approached carefully. Some of the crew are beginning to talk. They say the humans have allied themselves with dark powers, ancient forces that devour ships and souls. Zexthul struck the aide across the face with his armored hand. Superstitious fools. There are no ancient powers, no mystical forces, only technology we do not yet understand. The humans have hidden weapons, nothing more. But privately, doubt gnawed at him. In his long career, he had never encountered anything like this. Enemies that fought were predictable. Enemies that hid could be found. But enemies that made entire fleets disappear without a trace. Continue our advance, he told his officers. But slow our approach. I want full sensor sweeps of every asteroid, every planet, every speck of dust in that system. Whatever destroyed our scouts will not catch the main fleet by surprise. The great warships of the hegemony reduced speed, their massive engines dimming as they crept toward Earth. 50,000 ships spread out in battle formation, sensors probing ahead for any sign of threat. The finest warriors in the galaxy prepared for a battle unlike any they had fought before. Behind them, across vast distances of space, other alien civilizations watched and waited. The Kethvar hegemony was known throughout the galaxy as a force of destruction. If something could make their ships vanish without a trace, it posed a threat to everyone. And on Earth, in places hidden from alien sensors, humanity waited as well. The time for messages and warnings had passed. The choice now lay with the approaching fleet. Stop or learn why Earth had gone silent. The silence was not surrender. It was preparation. Admiral Zexthul would discover this truth soon enough, though by then it would be far too late to turn back. The children of Earth had been listening to the galaxy for over a century, learning its languages and studying its civilizations. They had sent their peaceful messages, knowing they would likely be ignored. Now the galaxy would learn that humanity's silence was far more dangerous than their words had ever been. The fleet pressed onward toward its destiny, unaware that every ship had already been carefully catalogued and targeted. The watchers in the asteroid belt made final preparations, their weapons charged and ready. Soon, very soon, the Kethvar hegemony would receive humanity's real response to their invasion, and the galaxy would never be the same. 3 months of careful travel had brought the Kethvar fleet to the edge of the Sol system. Admiral Zexthul stood in his command center, watching the tactical displays with growing unease. The massive fleet had spread out across space in a formation designed to surround and crush any resistance. 50,000 warships, each one capable of reducing a city to ash, waited for his orders. But the enemy they had come to fight seemed to have vanished. Report, Zexthul commanded, his voice echoing through the bridge. Commander Yethka studied her sensor readings with obvious confusion. Admiral, long-range scans confirm what our advanced probes detected. The human orbital infrastructure is gone. Space stations, communication satellites, mining platforms, even the orbital debris that accumulates around inhabited worlds. Everything has simply disappeared. The alien commander felt his stomach tighten. In his experience, such complete evacuation was impossible. Moving an entire civilization's space-based assets would take years and leave massive energy signatures. Ships, orbital elevators, industrial platforms. All of it required enormous efforts to dismantle and relocate. What about the planet itself, he asked. Thermal scans show minimal heat signatures, reported the sensor officer. No major cities are generating power. No industrial complexes are operating. The electromagnetic spectrum is almost silent except for natural planetary radiation. Zexthal moved to the main display, studying the blue-green world that hung in space like a jewel. It looked peaceful, beautiful even, but appearances could deceive, as the fate of his scout ships had proven. Send probe drones to survey the inner system, he ordered. I want to know where 30 billion humans went, and I want to know what happened to our missing ships. Dozens of small, unmanned probes launched from the fleet, racing ahead toward Earth and its neighboring planets. These drones were designed to be expendable, carrying powerful sensors and communication equipment to gather intelligence without risking crew lives. Hours passed as the probes transmitted data back to the fleet. The reports were increasingly disturbing. Mars showed no signs of recent human activity. The asteroid belt appeared normal, though sensor readings were unclear due to the complex gravitational fields and mineral compositions of the rocks floating there. Earth itself remained a mystery. Atmospheric scans detected normal air composition and weather patterns, but the cities that should have housed billions of people showed no signs of life. Streets were empty, buildings dark, vehicles abandoned. It's like they all just left, muttered the communications officer. But where could they go? Their technology can't move entire populations between star systems. Commander Yethka frowned at her readings. Admiral, there's something else. The probe approaching Earth just went silent. On the tactical display, the probe's signal simply stopped. One moment it was transmitting normally as it entered Earth's outer atmosphere. The next moment, nothing. Equipment failure? Zexthal asked, though he already knew the answer. Negative, sir. All systems showed green until the moment of silence. The probe was functioning perfectly when it disappeared. More probes went silent as they approached various points in the inner system. Not all of them. Some completed their missions and returned useful data. But enough vanished to establish a pattern. Something in the Earth system was selectively destroying Kethvar technology. Pull back the remaining probes, Zexthal ordered. Establish a perimeter at the outer planets. I want to understand what we're dealing with before we commit the main fleet. As his ships took defensive positions, the Admiral studied intelligence reports from across the galaxy. The Kethvar had detailed files on hundreds of alien species, their technologies, and their military capabilities. Humans had been classified as a minor threat, barely worth detailed study. Now those files seemed woefully inadequate. Sir? The intelligence officer approached with a datapad. I've been reviewing our historical records of human transmissions. There's something we may have missed. Zexthal took the pad and read the analysis. For over a century, human radio signals had been detected across dozens of star systems. Most aliens dismissed these transmissions as primitive chatter, entertainment programs, commercial broadcasts, personal communications. But the intelligence officer had identified patterns in the signals that suggested something more sophisticated. Hidden within the seemingly random broadcasts were complex mathematical sequences, scientific data, and what appeared to be technological specifications. They were sharing information, Zexthal realized. Not just with each other, but potentially with other species in the galaxy. That's what concerns me, sir. If humans have been in secret communication with advanced civilizations, they may have acquired technologies we know nothing about. The Admiral felt a chill run down his spine. The Kethvar Empire dominated through superior technology and overwhelming force. If their enemies had found ways to level the playing field, everything changed. A new alarm sounded across the bridge. The sensor officer's voice carried a note of panic. Admiral, massive energy readings from the asteroid belt. Something is powering up out there. On the main display, space around the asteroids began to shimmer and distort. Huge structures became visible as their camouflage systems deactivated. Not ships. These were installations built into and around the asteroids themselves. Each one was larger than a Kethvar dreadnought. "How many?" Zexthul asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "Still counting, sir. At least 50 major installations visible so far, with smaller structures throughout the belt. Admiral, these aren't hastily built defenses. The construction would have taken decades. Decades. The humans had been building these weapons while sending their peaceful messages, while pretending to be a primitive species concerned only with trade and cultural exchange. The deception was masterful. "What about weapon signatures?" he asked. "Unknown technology, sir. The energy patterns don't match anything in our databases, but the power levels." The officer paused. "Each installation is generating more energy than our entire fleet combined." Zexthul studied the tactical display, counting the defensive platforms that continued to reveal themselves. His 50,000 ships suddenly seemed inadequate. The humans had turned their entire asteroid belt into a fortress. "Sir, we're receiving a transmission from Earth," the communications officer reported. "Audio only, broad-spectrum broadcast. Put it through." The bridge fell silent as a human voice filled the command center. It was the same woman who had sent the final warning months ago, but her tone had changed. Where before there had been pleading and hope, now there was only cold certainty. "This is Dr. Elena Vasquez speaking for the Human Defense Council. Admiral Zexthul of the Kethvar Hegemony. We know you are listening. Your scouts are unharmed but detained. They will be returned to you if you withdraw immediately." The Admiral's mandibles clicked in surprise. The humans knew his name, his rank, even his specific ship. Their intelligence gathering was far more sophisticated than anyone had realized. "We have studied your species for over a century," the voice continued. "We know your history, your technology, your military tactics. We know you have conquered 47 worlds through superior firepower and terror tactics. We also know you have never faced an enemy that truly understood your capabilities." Murmurs of unease rippled through the bridge crew. Being studied was one thing, but this level of detailed knowledge suggested preparation on a scale they had never encountered. "You came here expecting to find a primitive species cowering in fear. Instead, you have found something else entirely. Humanity spent the last 100 years preparing for this moment. While we sent messages of peace, we also built weapons of war. While we hoped for friendship, we planned for invasion." The transmission paused, and Zexthul could almost feel the weight of human eyes watching his fleet from hidden sensors. "You have one chance to survive this encounter. Turn your ships around and leave our system. Return to your space and tell your government that Earth is under the protection of forces they do not understand. Do this, and your crews will live to see their homes again." Admiral Zexthul looked around his bridge at the faces of his officers. These were warriors who had never known defeat. Soldiers who had carved an empire from the stars through courage and superior technology. Fear was foreign to them, but in their eyes, he saw the beginning of doubt. "What if we refuse?" he spoke aloud, knowing the humans would hear. Dr. Vasquez's reply came immediately, as if she had been waiting for the question. "Then you will learn why Earth went silent, Admiral. You will discover what happens when a species that values peace is finally forced to abandon it. You will understand why the galaxy should fear humanity's wrath far more than they ever feared our friendship." The transmission ended, leaving the bridge in absolute silence. 50,000 ships hung in space, facing an enemy that had turned an entire star system into a weapon. The Kethvar had come to conquer a primitive world. Instead, they had found something that might conquer them. Admiral Zexthul stared at the asteroid belt where humanity's hidden weapons waited. Soon he would have to make a choice that would determine the fate of his entire fleet. And somewhere in the darkness between the asteroids, humanity waited to see what choice he would make. Admiral Zexthul stared at the tactical displays showing the massive defensive platforms hidden throughout the asteroid belt. Each installation was larger than his flagship, and sensors indicated at least 75 of them were now fully powered and targeting his fleet. The humans had spent a century building these weapons while sending messages of peace and friendship. The deception was masterful, but it would not save them. "Admiral, Commander Yethka said quietly. Perhaps we should consider their offer. A tactical withdrawal would allow us to study their defenses and return with a larger force. Zexthal's 6 eyes blazed with fury. Withdraw? The Kethvar hegemony does not retreat from inferior species. These humans may have hidden weapons, but they are still primitives who crawled out of their caves only yesterday. He turned to address his bridge crew, his voice carrying the authority of generations of conquest. We have 50,000 warships. Our weapons have reduced entire worlds to molten slag. Our shields have withstood the fury of dying stars. What can these creatures possibly do to threaten us? But even as he spoke, doubt gnawed at his mind. The missing scout ships, the complete disappearance of human orbital infrastructure, the impossible energy readings from the asteroid belt. None of it fit the pattern of previous conquests. Sir, the communications officer interrupted. We're receiving another transmission from Earth. Multiple sources this time. Put it through, Zexthal commanded. Dr. Elena Vasquez's voice filled the bridge again, but now she was joined by others. Male and female voices speaking in different human languages, all translated by the ship's computers into Kethvar speech. Admiral, this is Dr. James Chen from the Beijing Defense Center. Our sensors show your fleet has not begun withdrawal procedures. We are disappointed but not surprised, another voice joined in. This is Colonel Sarah Williams from the Luna Command Station. We had hoped your species valued the lives of your soldiers more than your pride. A third speaker added, Dr. Mikhail Petrov from the Mars Coordination Hub. Your military history suggests you respond only to demonstrations of superior force. Very well. We will provide such a demonstration. Zexthal clicked his mandibles in confusion. Luna Command Station? Mars Coordination Hub? His sensors showed no installations on those worlds. No signs of human presence anywhere in the system except for the platforms in the asteroid belt. Admiral, his sensor officer reported with a trembling voice. Energy spikes detected throughout the system, not just from the asteroid belt, from everywhere. The main display updated as new contacts appeared across the tactical map. The empty space around Jupiter flickered, revealing a massive ring of defensive stations orbiting the gas giant. Similar installations materialized around Saturn, their stealth systems deactivating to show weapons platforms the size of small moons. Even more shocking, the apparently dead planet Mars suddenly blazed with energy signatures. Cities that had appeared dark and lifeless were revealed to be operational, their heat signatures masked by technology the Kethvar couldn't even identify. Impossible, Zexthal whispered. Our sensors would have detected such massive installations. Dr. Vasquez's voice returned, calm and patient like a teacher explaining a simple concept to a slow student. Admiral, your sensors detected exactly what we wanted them to detect. Humanity has had a century to study Kethvar technology through the wreckage of ships you left behind on conquered worlds. We know how your sensors work, what frequencies they use, what signatures they look for. The truth hit Zexthal like a physical blow. Every world the hegemony had conquered, every ship they had destroyed, every piece of technology they had left behind. The humans had been studying it all, learning their capabilities, their weaknesses, their blind spots. While you saw us as primitive creatures playing with radio waves, Dr. Vasquez continued, we were decoding your technologies, understanding your tactics, preparing for the day you would inevitably come to our world. New voices joined the transmission, each one representing a different aspect of humanity's hidden civilization. This is Admiral Rebecca Torres from the Jupiter Fleet Command. Our orbital shipyards have been operational for 60 years, Admiral. We have been building warships while you thought we could barely reach our own moon. Dr. Hassan al-Rashid from the Saturn Research Station. Our scientists have developed technologies your empire has never imagined. We learned not just from studying your devices, but from alliances you never knew existed. Zexthal felt the blood drain from his face. Alliances. Oh yes, Admiral, Dr. Vasquez replied. Did you think humanity was the only species your empire had threatened? The galaxy is full of civilizations that fear the Kethvar hegemony. Many of them were quite willing to share knowledge with a species that might one day stand against you. The tactical display updated again, showing movement throughout the system. Ships were emerging from hidden bases on moons and asteroids, their designs unlike anything in Kethvar databases. Some appeared to be purely human in construction, sleek and elegant. Others showed clear signs of alien technology integrated into their systems. The Zerak Union provided advanced metallurgy, Dr. Vasquez explained conversationally. The Moran Federation shared their energy weapon designs. The Tholian researchers taught us their stealth technologies. Even the reclusive crystalline entities offered knowledge in exchange for our promise to oppose your expansion. Each name sent fresh waves of shock through the Kethvar bridge crew. These were species the hegemony considered potential future targets, civilizations they planned to conquer once humanity was dealt with. The idea that these scattered peoples had been secretly coordinating resistance was unthinkable. Impossible, Zexthul said again, but his voice lacked conviction. The galaxy is too vast for such coordination. Communication delays alone would make it impractical. Would they, Admiral? Dr. Vasquez asked. What if I told you that humanity developed faster-than-light communication networks 50 years ago? What if our peaceful radio broadcasts were actually test transmissions for a galaxy-spanning communication system? The implications staggered him. If humans could communicate instantly across interstellar distances, they could coordinate with distant allies in real time. They could share intelligence, coordinate strategies, even call for assistance during battles, but why? Zexthul found himself asking. Why go to such lengths? Why not simply build a normal military and fight us in open battle? The answer came from a new voice, older and more authoritative than the others. This is President Elizabeth Harrison, speaking for the United Earth government. Because, Admiral, we studied your tactics. We know how you fight. You rely on superior technology and overwhelming numbers to crush resistance quickly. Traditional military buildups would have been detected and destroyed before they became a threat. She paused, and when she continued, her voice carried a weight of sadness. We also studied your treatment of conquered peoples. We know about the slave labor camps, the cultural destruction, the systematic elimination of anyone who might lead future resistance. We decided that such a fate was unacceptable. So you chose to fight a war you could not win? Zexthul asked. No, Admiral, President Harrison replied. We chose to fight a war we could not lose. While you were conquering other worlds, we were building something new. Not just weapons or ships or defensive platforms. We were building a network of species united by a common goal. The end of the Kethvar hegemony's reign of terror. Commander Yethka leaned close to Zexthul and whispered urgently, Admiral, our own intelligence reports mention rumors of increased coordination between various species. Communications intercepts that didn't make sense. Ships appearing in unexpected locations. Technology transfers that seemed illogical. If the humans are telling the truth, then we are not facing just humanity. Zexthul finished. We are facing an alliance of potentially dozens of species, all focused on our destruction. The tactical display now showed hundreds of contacts throughout the Sol system. Weapons platforms, ships, installations, all of them previously hidden by technology that made Kethvar sensors useless. The fleet that had seemed overwhelmingly powerful an hour ago now appeared dangerously outnumbered. Admiral, Dr. Vasquez said, we offer you one final chance. Order your fleet to withdraw immediately. Return to Kethvar space and inform your government that the age of easy conquest is over. The galaxy has organized against you, and humanity stands at the center of that alliance. Zexthul looked around his bridge at the faces of his officers. These were warriors who had never known defeat, but he could see uncertainty in their eyes. They had come to conquer a primitive world and found themselves facing an enemy that had spent a century preparing for this exact moment. And if we refuse? He asked, though he feared the answer. Then you will become the first Kethvar fleet to learn why the galaxy should fear humanity's friendship more than our enmity, Dr. Vasquez replied. You will discover what happens when a species that values peace is forced to abandon it. The transmission paused, and across all frequencies came a sound that chilled the blood of every Kethvar warrior. It was music, complex, beautiful, and utterly alien to their ears. Human voices singing in harmony, accompanied by instruments they couldn't identify. That is the Song of Earth, Admiral, Dr. Vasquez explained. It contains mathematical sequences that describe our world, our culture, our dreams for the future. Admiral Zexthul's pride would not allow retreat. For over 2 centuries, the Kethvar hegemony had crushed every enemy through superior firepower and ruthless determination. The idea of fleeing from a species they had dismissed as primitives was unthinkable. All ships, he commanded, his voice carrying across the fleet communications. Prepare for battle. These humans may have hidden weapons, but they are still inferior creatures who have never faced the might of a true military power. We will teach them the price of defying the hegemony. The Song of Earth continued to play across all frequencies, its beautiful harmonies creating an eerie soundtrack to the preparations for war. Throughout the massive Kethvar fleet, weapons powered up and shields activated. 50,000 warships arranged themselves in attack formation, their combined firepower capable of sterilizing entire worlds. Time remaining? Zexthul asked. 15 seconds, Admiral, the communications officer reported. Commander Yethka made one final attempt. Sir, perhaps we should, silence, Zexthul roared. The Kethvar do not bow to threats from inferior species. All ships advance and engage. Show these humans what happens when they challenge their betters. The countdown reached 0, and the Song of Earth stopped. For a moment, space was utterly silent. Then the humans responded. The first wave of human weapons was unlike anything the Kethvar had ever encountered. Instead of the energy beams or kinetic projectiles they expected, streams of impossible light reached out from the hidden platforms. When these beams touched Kethvar ships, the vessels simply began to dissolve. What's happening? Zexthul demanded as he watched the entire destroyer simply come apart at the molecular level. Unknown weapons, Admiral, the science officer reported in panic. The ships aren't exploding, they're being disassembled, atom by atom. The weapons didn't even seem to travel at light speed. The beams appeared to exist in multiple locations simultaneously, touching targets across vast distances without any apparent travel time. Kethvar shields designed to deflect energy weapons and absorb kinetic impacts were useless. The human weapons passed through them as if they weren't there. How was this possible? Commander Yethka stared at the tactical display in horror as hundreds of ships vanished from the formation. Dr. Vasquez's voice returned, calm and patient, despite the destruction unfolding around them. Molecular disassembly fields, Commander, based on technology shared by the crystalline entities and improved through human engineering. Your shields protect against energy and matter. These weapons operate on quantum levels your science has not yet discovered. A second wave of weapons activated, these ones more familiar in appearance. Brilliant energy beams lanced out from human ships, striking Kethvar vessels with devastating effect. But even these conventional-looking weapons behaved strangely. They curved through space, following impossible trajectories to strike targets from multiple angles simultaneously. Plasma weapons enhanced with gravitational manipulation, Dr. Vasquez explained as if conducting a lecture. Borrowed from Xeric Union technology and refined through decades of research, the beams can bend around obstacles, split into multiple streams, or converge from different directions for concentrated strikes. Admiral Zexthul watched in growing horror as his magnificent fleet was systematically destroyed. Ships that had conquered worlds were reduced to expanding clouds of gas and debris. Experienced crews that had never known defeat were vaporized before they could even comprehend the nature of their enemy's weapons. Return fire, he commanded desperately. All ships target the human platforms. The Kethvar fleet responded with their own devastating weapons. Energy cannons that could melt through planetary crust fired at maximum power. Kinetic projectiles traveling at significant fractions of light speed hurtled toward human installations. Nuclear warheads and antimatter bombs exploded across the asteroid belt. For a moment it seemed the human positions had been overwhelmed by the massive barrage. Explosions lit up space around the hidden platforms, and several energy signatures flickered and died. Then the smoke cleared, and the human installations were still there, completely undamaged. Impossible, Zexthul whispered. Nothing could survive that level of concentrated firepower. Phase shift defenses, Dr. Vasquez explained, her voice still maddeningly calm. Miran Federation technology allows our platforms to temporarily exist in alternate dimensional phases. Your weapons passed harmlessly through empty space while our installations observed from parallel reality states. The third wave of human attacks was the most terrifying yet. Ships that appeared from nowhere, materializing directly within the Kethvar formation. These vessels were sleek and elegant, their designs incorporating graceful curves that seemed almost organic. They moved through space in ways that violated every law of physics the Kethvar understood. How are they moving like that? The science officer reported, his voice breaking with stress. They're accelerating without any apparent propulsion systems, changing direction without regard for momentum conservation. The human ships danced between Kethvar vessels like living things, their weapons firing in perfect coordination. Each shot was precisely targeted, striking critical systems and disabling ships without destroying them completely. It was surgical precision on a scale that suggested each human vessel possessed computing power beyond Kethvar understanding. Consciousness-guided vessels, Dr. Vasquez said. Each ship contains a hybrid intelligence combining human creativity with artificial calculation speed. They don't just aim their weapons, they think their shots into existence. Admiral Zexthul realized with growing terror that the humans weren't just defeating his fleet, they were playing with it. Ships were being disabled rather than destroyed, crews captured rather than killed. The demonstration was designed to show the complete helplessness of Kethvar technology against human capabilities. Admiral, Commander Yethka grabbed his arm. We must order a retreat. The fleet is being systematically destroyed. On the tactical display, the numbers told the story of complete defeat. In less than 10 minutes, 45,000 ships had been destroyed or disabled. The remaining 5,000 vessels were scattered and demoralized, their formations broken and their weapons ineffective. But perhaps most shocking of all, the human losses were zero. Not a single platform had been damaged, not one ship destroyed. The Kethvar hegemony's most powerful fleet had been crushed without causing any meaningful harm to their enemies. All ships, Zexthul said quietly, his voice broken by the magnitude of defeat. Cease fire and assume defensive positions. The human weapons stopped firing immediately, though their targeting systems remained locked onto every surviving Kethvar vessel. The silence that followed was profound, broken only by distress calls from damaged ships and the quiet hum of life support systems. Dr. Vasquez spoke again, and this time her voice carried a note of genuine sadness. Admiral, we take no pleasure in this demonstration. We are not a species that glorifies war or celebrates destruction, but the galaxy needed to see that the age of Kethvar expansion is over. You could have destroyed us completely, Zexthul said, the words bitter in his mouth. Why didn't you? Because we are not you, Admiral, she replied simply. We do not exterminate entire populations because they threaten us. We disable, we capture, we demonstrate overwhelming superiority, and then we offer the chance for change. A new voice joined the transmission, older and more authoritative. This is Fleet Admiral Chen Wei of the Human Defense Force. Admiral Zexthul, your fleet is completely at our mercy. We could finish the destruction in minutes if we chose to do so. Instead, we offer you a choice. Zexthul waited, knowing that whatever came next would change everything. Return to your empire, Admiral Chen continued. Tell your government what you have seen here. Inform them that humanity now stands as the guardian of this region of space, and that any species that chooses aggression over cooperation will face the same fate as your fleet. And our surviving ships? Zexthul asked. Will be repaired and allowed to depart, Admiral Chen replied. Your crews will be treated according to the highest standards of interstellar law. Some may even choose to remain and help us build a better future for the galaxy. The offer was generous beyond anything Zexthul had expected. In his experience, defeated enemies were enslaved or eliminated. The idea of being allowed to return home intact and unharmed was almost incomprehensible. Why? He asked. Why show mercy to an enemy that came to destroy you? Dr. Vasquez answered, her voice warm with something that might have been pity. Because, Admiral, we remember what it was like to be weak. We remember fearing stronger powers and hoping they would choose mercy over conquest. We decided long ago that when we became strong enough to choose, we would choose differently than you did. As human rescue ships moved to assist damaged Kethvar vessels, Admiral Zexthul understood that everything had changed. The hegemony's reign of terror was over, ended not by superior force alone but by a species that had learned to combine strength with compassion. The humans had not just defeated his fleet, they had demonstrated a better way to use power. 6 months after the Battle of Sol, Admiral Zexthul stood before the High Council of the Kethvar hegemony, his once proud uniform stripped of its decorations of conquest. The great chamber fell silent as he delivered his report, describing in detail how humanity had crushed the most powerful fleet in Kethvar history without losing a single ship. The council members listened with growing disbelief and horror. Some accused him of cowardice, others of fabricating impossible tales to excuse his defeat, but the evidence was undeniable. Only 5,000 ships had returned, from the 50,000 that had departed for Earth. The crews told consistent stories of weapons that defied physics and enemies that showed mercy to the defeated. Impossible, declared High Counselor Vexren. his ancient voice cracking with rage. No primitive species could develop such technologies in a mere century. You were defeated by cowardice, not superior enemies. Admiral Zexthal straightened his shoulders, meeting the eyes of his accusers. I have served the hegemony for 40 years, High Counselor. I have conquered 18 worlds in the name of our empire. I am many things, but I am not a coward. He activated a holographic display showing the recordings from the battle. The council watched in stunned silence as Kethvar ships were systematically dismantled by weapons they couldn't comprehend. They saw human vessels that moved like living creatures, defying every law of physics their science understood. The humans were not lying, Zexthal continued. They spent a century building alliances while we dismissed them as primitives. The galaxy has united against us, and humanity leads that alliance. Even as the council debated their response, reports were arriving from across the hegemony's borders. Human ships had appeared at the edge of dozens of star systems, their presence announced by the same broadcast that now echoed throughout known space. Dr. Elena Vasquez's voice carried to every inhabited world, translated into hundreds of languages. This is the Human Defense Council, speaking for the Galactic Coalition of Free Peoples. The age of conquest through superior firepower is over. We offer friendship to those who choose peace, protection to those who need it, and justice to those who prey upon the innocent. The message continued with specific warnings to aggressive civilizations throughout the galaxy. The Kethvar hegemony was named first among them, but they were not alone. The Vorthan Empire, which enslaved entire species for genetic experiments. The Nexus Syndicate, which stripped worlds of resources and left their populations to starve. The Blood Fleet of Zektar, which raided peaceful settlements for sport. All of them received the same ultimatum: cease aggressive actions immediately, or face the consequences. On the mining world of Kepler 442b, enslaved populations looked up in wonder as human ships appeared in orbit. The Vorthon overseers fled in panic, having heard the reports from Sol. Within hours, liberation forces landed on the planet's surface, offering medical aid and transport to safety for species that had known only suffering for generations. The freed slaves were amazed by their rescuers. Humans worked alongside alien allies, Xerac engineers repairing damaged infrastructure, Miran medical teams treating the injured, crystalline entities providing advanced technology for rebuilding efforts. The alliance Dr. Vasquez had described was real, and it was vast. Similar scenes played out across the galaxy. On worlds where the strong preyed upon the weak, human ships appeared as harbingers of change. But the humans didn't come as conquerors. They came as protectors, offering aid and asking for nothing in return except an end to oppression. Admiral Zexthal learned of these events through intelligence reports that grew more desperate each day. The hegemony's carefully maintained network of terror was collapsing, as client species realized they no longer needed to fear Kethvar retaliation. They're everywhere, reported Intelligence Chief Mordak. Human ships, human bases, human technology being shared with species we've kept suppressed for centuries. They're not just fighting us, they're building something to replace us. The truth was even more profound than the hegemony leadership realized. Humanity had not simply defeated one fleet or liberated a few worlds. They had fundamentally changed the balance of power in the galaxy. On Earth, Dr. Elena Vasquez stood in the command center that coordinated the new galactic order. Around her, representatives from dozens of species worked together, sharing information and resources in ways that had been impossible under the old system of fear and domination. Status report, she requested from Admiral Rebecca Torres, who had taken command of the expanding fleet. Liberation of the Vorthan slave worlds is complete, Torres reported. The Nexus Syndicate has withdrawn from the Outer Rim territories. 3 more species have requested membership in the coalition this week. The transformation was remarkable. Species that had hidden in isolation, fearing the attention of aggressive empires, were emerging to join the growing alliance. Others that had been enemies for millennia were finding common ground in their shared desire for peace and prosperity. But not everyone embraced the change. The Kethvar High Council, desperate to maintain their power, authorized increasingly desperate measures. Stealth attacks on human shipping, terrorist strikes against coalition worlds, even attempted assassinations of human leaders. Each attack was met with swift, precise retaliation. Human ships would appear at the source of aggression, disable the responsible forces, and extract justice with surgical precision. No innocent lives were lost, but the message was clear. The new guardians of the galaxy would not tolerate a return to the old ways. The breaking point came when Kethvar extremists attempted to destroy a human medical station treating refugees from their former slave worlds. The attack was prevented, but the Coalition's response was swift and overwhelming. A human fleet appeared over the Kethvar homeworld, their ships forming a perfect sphere around the planet. No shots were fired, no threats were made. The ships simply waited, their presence a reminder of how easily they could end the hegemony if they chose to do so. The message was delivered by Dr. Vasquez herself, speaking directly to the High Council. Leaders of the Kethvar hegemony, she said, her voice carrying the weight of absolute authority. Your choice is simple. Join the growing community of civilized peoples, or watch your empire crumble as every oppressed species under your rule finds the courage to rebel. You cannot defeat us all, High Counselor Vexran responded defiantly. We are warriors. We have conquered worlds when your species was still living in caves. You're right, Dr. Vasquez replied calmly. We cannot defeat you all. But we don't need to. Your own people will defeat you for us. Even as she spoke, reports were coming in from across Kethvar space. Slave species were rising in rebellion, supported by human weapons and training. Client races were declaring independence, protected by coalition fleets. Even some Kethvar worlds were questioning the wisdom of their leaders' continued aggression. Admiral Zexthal, watching from his position in disgrace, understood what the human doctor meant. The hegemony had maintained control through fear, but fear required the ability to project overwhelming force. With humanity neutralizing that advantage, the entire system of oppression was collapsing. What do you want from us? He asked, stepping forward despite the protests of the council. Dr. Vasquez's expression softened slightly. The same thing we wanted a century ago, Admiral. Peace, trade, cultural exchange. The chance to explore the galaxy together instead of fighting over who gets to control it. And if we refuse, then you will become irrelevant, she replied simply. The galaxy is moving forward with or without you. The choice is whether you want to be part of building something better, or whether you prefer to cling to a system that no longer works. The debate within the Kethvar government lasted weeks, but the outcome was inevitable. Faced with the complete collapse of their empire and the rise of a new galactic order based on cooperation rather than conquest, even the most stubborn council members eventually accepted reality. The Kethvar hegemony formally dissolved 6 months later, its member worlds joining the coalition as individual systems with full rights and protections. Some former hegemony leaders were tried for war crimes, but many others, including Admiral Zexthal, found new roles in the emerging galactic civilization. Standing on the observation deck of a coalition research station, the former admiral watched as ships from dozens of species worked together on a massive construction project. They were building a new type of vessel, not a warship, but an exploration ship designed to carry mixed crews to previously unknown regions of the galaxy. Magnificent, isn't it? Dr. Vasquez joined him at the viewport, her hair now gray with the years that had passed since the Battle of Sol. I don't understand it, Zexthal admitted. You had the power to destroy us all. You could have built an empire to rival anything the galaxy has ever seen. Instead, you chose to share that power with everyone. Dr. Vasquez smiled, the expression carrying a lifetime of wisdom and sacrifice. Admiral, that's exactly why we were the right species to have that power. We learned long ago that true strength comes not from the ability to destroy your enemies, but from the wisdom to turn them into friends. She gestured toward the construction project, where Kethvar engineers worked alongside human technicians and alien specialists.